The Republican Senate primary goes down to the wire. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. It looks like any one of the three Republicans running for U.S. Senate has a chance to win Tuesday's primary. The latest poll from Emerson College shows State Senator Matt Dolan surging a bit. Dolan has jumped 10 points from January and now leads with 26% among registered voters. Bernie Moreno is second with 23%, and Frank LaRose is third with 16%. But 32% of those Republicans surveyed say they remain undecided. Now, that poll was taken before Governor DeWine decided to endorse Matt Dolan. And the key endorser, we think, former President Donald Trump, is scheduled to come to Ohio this weekend to campaign for Bernie Moreno. Laura Bischoff, what do you think is going on in this race? Matt Dolan's surge. What do you think is going on?
Well, I think that the poll numbers kind of show that this is anybody's race. With a third undecided, it could break in any direction. And the fact that the governor decided to get in and endorse Dolan after saying he was going to just let the voters decide tells me that he thinks Dolan's got a good chance. Dolan has kind of the mainstream Ohio Republicans, Rob Portman and Mike DeWine behind him. And Moreno's got Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance, and Jim Jordan. So it's like a much more right-wing, coalition behind Moreno.
Gina, there's been a lot of money spent already, $30-some-odd million, and we're just in the primary. It's only mid-March. Is it the money that Matt Dolan is pumping onto TV that's being effective, is raising questions about Bernie Moreno?
There's many things that's going on. One, the money, undoubtedly. Two, you've heard me say before on the show that I've always joked Matt Dolan can win with 34% of the vote to get 33%. And what it is that Frank and Bernie have been positioning themselves as saying, I'm the true inheritor of the MAGA movement, is what they keep saying. And Matt's been charting his own path, and they're splitting that vote. And I just think it's most interesting that 1/3 of my people are undecided yet 6 days out.
These are registered voters in this survey, Sam, not likely voters. So there's a difference there. And the thinking is that if you're undecided this late date, you may just stay home, right? If you're just a registered voter, maybe not a likely voter.
You're right about that. But there's one thing about Dolan, and when you look at the polls, Brown is +3 over Dolan. All the other two candidates, he's +8 or better. So Dolan, from his latest poll information, is the most competitive of all. But now he's got this computer issue, website issues that he's dealing with, or is that a different guy?
And Moreno has that. There's questions
Moreno,
about
okay.
his with a site from 25 years ago. But the Democrats are sort of meddling. Chuck Schumer's affiliated PAC is running ads saying Bernie Moreno is too conservative, which means, conservatives are going to say, hey, he's my guy. So does meddling ever work when Democrats try to get into a Republican primary and mess with them?
Yes, it worked in California just recently. What's his name, the guy?
Schiff and Garvey.
No, yeah, it worked for him. He didn't want to run against the other two competitors who were Democrat, and he pumped Garvey up, and Garvey won. So there's a possibility, but that's a modern technique. Yeah. That's new.
I think when the race is this close, that kind of meddling on the edges can be effective. Yeah. It seems there's a story that Politico wrote that said this Duty and Country PAC put in $2.5 million in advertising, saying Moreno is too conservative. Yeah. And that is sort of like a whistle to voters to say, oh, well, yeah, okay, that's who I want.
Yeah, technically it's aimed at Democrats, but by default, it's, Republicans are going to see that. He's my guy.
Right, and the thinking is that they'd rather go up against Moreno, that Brown has a better chance against him in the general than against Dolan, who's more mainstream.
That's true.
Gene, I joked on this show back in January when Mike DeWine said he wasn't going to endorse in the U.S. Senate race, and that was music to the ears of all three candidates in the Republican U.S. Senate race. Now, this week, Matt Dolan, he's He's all for Mike DeWine's endorsement.
I've also said before on the show that Dolan is by far and away the one to give Brown. Brown is going to be formidable. I'm not downplaying what Sherrod is like, but Matt can give Sherrod a legitimate campaign. Bernie and Frank will probably lose, and that's what Republicans understand.
But he has the Trump endorsement, and that was J.D. Vance's key when he won in 2022.
J.D. Vance, what happened here, though, was that Mitch McConnell poured an extra, $10 or $20 million into that race after that. And because of that, they ended up losing Pennsylvania and other races, too. So there was a consequence for that.
You know, there's something about Brown's character that says Ohio, though. I mean, he's a frumpy guy. He's not polished and spit shy. He has that deep, gravelly voice. He just looks Ohio. I mean, so it's going to be hard to beat that guy, man.
Hey, we can, though. I remember Mike DeWine beat him.
Yeah. And
then Mike DeWine beat. Then Sherrod beat Mike
Right.
DeWine.
Mike DeWine.
So,
Yeah.
And Sherrod won his last election only by 7 points.
Yeah.
But I think there are a couple of things riding on this election that down ballot candidates will gain from this go round.
Laura, what do you think? Frank LaRose won statewide twice. He's a pretty popular Republican. Why isn't he doing better?
I think because, Donald Trump picked the other MAGA guy in the race. And I think that is, that was really a big problem for him when that happened.
So his full-throated support of, or opposition to the Abortion Rights Amendment, supporting the August election to make it harder to change the Constitution, just does not have any legs with Republicans.
Yeah, and although he won statewide twice, I mean, it's Secretary of State, so it's a lower visibility position. His name is very visible during elections, though, obviously.
But I'll say from our side of the aisle, he threw us a couple of bones during the statewide initiatives. But recently he heard us again. We had an initiative we wanted to put on the ballot for voters' rights, and he heard us in the language category because we didn't get that through. But we'll be back.
All right. Down the ballot, several Republican primaries in the House and Senate will shape policy for the next 2 years. The primaries could also determine who the next House Speaker is. Current House Speaker Jason Stephens is actively supporting a slate of his Republican supporters. The state Republican Party is supporting many of their opponents. Senate President Matt Huffman is expected to win a House seat and then challenge Jason Stephens for the Speaker's gavel. Gene Krebs, this is a really interesting fight that's going on among Republicans in the House in particular. How is this going to affect how the House operates the next couple of years?
Okay, so first of all, I have to backtrack. I forgot it was actually Bob Taft who beat Sherrod, not Mike. Okay. This is very important because in Ohio, because of term limits, we evolve quicker than other states because every 2 years we take about a quarter of the General Assembly and we show them the door and say, see the pasture? That's where you're going to go now. You're out to pasture.
Or to the Senate sometimes.
But that's kind of hard to do. Yeah. That doesn't happen for a handful of cases. So because of that, political evolution occurs here more quickly than other states. So will we become more conservative? We're going to become more Christian nationalist, is what the chamber is. Not going to be conservative. It's going to become more Christian nationalist because that is right now what is the main thing controlling the Republican primaries.
Can Democrats take advantage of this, Sam? Or do the maps just not allow it?
There are several indications that Democrats have a chance to take advantage of it. Won't be right away. From my analysis, Northeast, Northwest, Southeast are the areas where Republicans do very well. And they have a tendency to overperform. I mean, they get 60, 70, 80% of the people out. Democrats in the core of Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus are not as disciplined. And they don't do as well as getting out that overperformance. But there's a little twist that will occur around 2035 to 2050.
Whoa.
When the population of elderly will drop significantly, 15 to 20%. And a large part of that contingency in the Northeast, Southeast that carries that are elderly rural. Now, as that population drops and the density in the state up the corridor continues to grow, there's a high possibility that that will occur.
All of us will still be here in 2050, 55.
Why
just so
is,
you know.
why is Sam looking at me when he says older rural people?
Will we know who the next speaker is, Laura, based on this primary, do we think? Will we?
I mean, I guess you could look to see who, which of the Huffman candidates and which of the Stevens candidates win, obviously. It does seem like this fight over the speakership has been going on for more than a decade. Not specifically Huffman and Stevens, but you had Cliff Rosenberger step down, then there was this epic battle between Ryan Smith and Larry Householder, and then the Stevens and Marin fight, and now we're just, the latest iteration is Stevens versus Huffman.
That's the new normal. That's all you're going to see now in the Ohio House. It's going to infect the state Senate soon, too. That you're going to see these continuous battles going on. And it's going to be a major disruptive problem for moving Ohio ahead economically until they get their act together.
Or until we change how we draw the maps, and the maps are more competitive.
That will affect it.
Yeah.
But that seems to be genetic. I mean, the white Republicans in the Capitol have the same problem. I mean, since Newt Gingrich, they've killed all the leaders who've come out of it.
What you've heard me say before on the show is that for Republicans, when we form a circular firing squad, we do so with automatic weapons of high caliber, and there's a lot more blood than when the Democrats do it with spitballs.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
true.
Republicans have better aim, probably, too.
Yeah, they'd be killing
A
that.
proposed constitutional amendment to raise Ohio's minimum wage appears to be moving closer to the ballot. The group pushing the amendment says they have collected roughly half the signatures they likely will need to qualify. If passed, Ohio's minimum wage would rise to $15 an hour by 2026. It now stands at $10.45 an hour. Laura, you wrote about this issue this week. Signature collection seems to be going well. This could be a big fight in the fall.
Yeah, so they have 350,000 signatures banked already. They need 413,000. They'll be shooting for 600+ thousand because there's a lot that get thrown out. This is a pretty serious effort. I think there's a national campaign that's working in about a dozen states to raise the wage, and union groups are behind it as well. So they have some pretty good support. I think they raised like almost $2 million for this, just for the signature gathering campaign. They're going to face some really stiff opposition, though, from the Restaurant Association, the bars, and business groups. One of the big sticking points is tipped workers. Tip workers would not have a lower wage anymore. They'd be at the same minimum wage as everybody else. And then people would tip on top of that if they choose. Yeah. And there's going to be a big pushback from the bars and restaurants on that.
You get a lot more waiters. There was just no more server shortage if that would have happened, Sam. Is this... The studies on this are all over the place. There's been no clear studies that are increases in employment or decreases employment or lifts people out of poverty. Where do you stand on this?
I want the wage to be at the maximum level so that people can have a viable life, livable wage. And the people who tip, it's a tough situation. I do the maximum that I can do because I understand that's what it is. But I want you to stop for a moment. And this ruby red Ohio that we used to have appears to be fading a little bit. And a lot of the legislation on critical social issues have been taken into the hands of the community through initiatives. That 60% threshold that they tried to do woke a lot of people up. And a lot of people really didn't understand how the system worked. Now people understand how the system worked. We're going to be running through, you forgot, our districting commission is on this year's initiative to be voted. It will pass.
So what does this do, Gene, to the Senate race, in particular other races on the ballot? Does this drive turnout, the minimum wage question? Will it drive younger people, Democrats, to the polls?
Yes, it will. And it's also interesting for Republicans because it's also somewhat of a populist issue. And once again, you have to look at J.D. Vance to understand where the Republican Party is right now. J.D. Vance is the spear point on where Republicans, the electorate, mostly is on issues like this. And when it comes to a whole lot of populist issues like that, this is not Reagan's party anymore.
So are they confident, Laura, they will get the signatures?
Oh yeah, they said that they're quite confident that they're gonna get the signatures, and then they're gonna get a lot of funding to campaign. It's interesting. I think Sam's right. A lot of issues have gone. Policy issues have been answered by the voters at the ballot. If you think about like casino gambling, marijuana,
Yes.
abortion rights, even going way back to the indoor smoking ban in Ohio, that was voter approved.
But the interesting the dynamic from an economic standpoint is that if next time you guys travel down I-75 to Buc-ee's in Richmond, Kentucky, you'll see that they are advertising starting level jobs for $23 an hour in rural Kentucky. And what this points to is the fact that wages have come up way above any minimum wage now.
So the Republicans won't mind $15 an hour then?
It's already been eclipsed by $23 an hour for working at a gas station.
It would raise, after 2026, the minimum wage would raise with inflation above $15 an hour, according to this
Right,
initiative.
but the free market has already gone well past that.
Yeah. All right, many of us are very dependent on our mobile phones. They interrupt meetings, dinner time, sleep, many other things. At school, they interrupt learning on occasion, and they can keep kids from interacting with each other face to face. For those reasons, Governor DeWine urges school districts around the state to ban phone use during school hours. A few districts have banned or severely restricted phones in middle and high school. While he strongly urges schools to enact a ban, DeWine says the state should not impose such a ban on local districts. Sam Gresham, why not take a stand and say there should be a statewide ban on phones during class time?
I think because the culture has significantly changed. And the culture has a dependence on those little boxes that we carry around. And not necessarily for communications and safety, but with the kids, it's a play toy. And they play toy with this thing 24 hours a day. I have to, when my grandkids come to my house, I try and work with them to get them to put these things down, but they don't put them down. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is in the back of mommy's and daddy's mind. I can contact my child. So when you have issues at school, you can call your child and check on them.
But I think what Mike DeWine has done very adroitly is that he's given this a cultural permission slip. That he said, for schools, if you want to do this, look, we've brought it up now, and it's now culturally permissible. It's just like yard signs don't vote, but they give people permission to vote in a particular way. DeWine has, in effect, given a sign to the school district saying, go ahead and ban this. You got my back.
This caught me by surprise, Laura. It sort of came out of nowhere, the cell phone. They had a forum up in Dublin where they talked about this with a lot of school superintendents from around the state. Dublin has enacted bans in some of their schools. But it seemed to caught me by surprise why this was a priority for the governor.
I think that there's been an interest in, limiting kids' free access to social media and other things, and we've seen that from the DeWine administration. I think that telling them to limit or curb use of cell phones in class is just an extension of that. But I do think that the horse is out of the barn already. These phones are everywhere. Parents don't want their kids not to have their phone on them. So that's going to be a big hurdle for getting that kind of a policy passed.
They are mini computers. I mean, you can. There may be teachers that use phones. I know they have like software you can vote on things. You can get the answer on your phone in a classroom instruction, but most kids are on, TikTok or Instagram and texting each other.
But you can. I've gone to conferences where they tell you to go to a particular website and you can give your opinion on the discussion that's going on. I thought it was kind of unique that you were able to do that.
The only place I do not see cell phones being used at all ever is in church for 1 hour on Sunday. That's it.
Well, we can pay by website at our church.
We can too, but you don't see them out.
They do have the readings on your phone. I used to do that once in a while.
And the Bible's on your phone. I've seen people have their Bible on their phone.
Well, I would have that on my phone. I'd be reading along with the readings, and my kids thought, you can't do that. They're going to think you're on your phone. It's like I'm on Facebook or something. Anyway, our last topic. Mid-March, 4 years ago, Ohio was a much different place. The roads were empty. Offices were empty. We stayed home as COVID wings of hospitals started to fill up. 4 years ago this week, Ohio found itself under a state of emergency. The primary election, you'll remember, was basically canceled. School kids had to learn from home, and we thought the shutdown would last just a few weeks. It lasted more than a year, and now it seems like a distant memory. Same question, have we forgotten already COVID and moved on?
Unfortunately, yes. And the tragedy that COVID created in our community. If you go back and try and remind people of the millions of people who died and the thousands of people who died in Ohio and in my community, the disproportionate death rate. And then further than that, the system of healthcare has not changed. So poor people, when we get another pandemic, will suffer again. So fundamentally, we haven't learned anything from that.
Here are the numbers. 1.2 million Americans roughly have died from COVID-19. 51,500 Ohioans have died from COVID. And today, some 100 Ohioans are in the hospital because of COVID. It's still here.
So since this is a show about politics, let's talk about the political impact of this. So prior to the advent of the vaccine, the urban communities took this on the chin. Yes. The death rate there was way above the average. But after the vaccines came out, the death rate in the urban cores plummeted, but it was in the rural areas where it skyrocketed because so many Republicans said, no, it's a plot. I'll get AIDS from it or whatever it is. Aliens are going to transverse my brain. So because of that, now the death rates, if you look at some states like Wisconsin, where I've seen the studies, enough Republicans died prematurely due to COVID, it may actually change the outcome of the presidential race there.
Science and knowledge is an evolving process. And what we know now, we didn't know when this started. And it's come out since then that, social distancing may not have been as effective as we thought it was. We certainly don't have to disinfect our groceries anymore, Laura. Do you think that will have an impact the next time? People won't be believing of folks like Amy Acton or Dr. Fauci?
Yeah, I don't think there won't be as much forgiveness of like, well, we didn't know what we didn't know. And I think some people will look back and say, I'm not going to believe everything they're telling us because, last time they had us in a frenzy and we were doing a bunch of stuff that wasn't effective, it turned out. However, vaccines are effective. And it's interesting to me that the medical freedom folks used the COVID-19 pandemic to really gain a lot of political strength. And only in America can you turn a virus into a political issue.
I think Laura's right. I think communicating pandemics and putting out credible information in the future is going to be very difficult because of all the problems we've run into at this point. People will not believe them, won't think the treatments that they're suggesting are valid. So we're going to have a lot of problems.
Is the most lasting impact of COVID empty office buildings and city cores? Working from home?
It's a aspect. I think, though, probably the biggest aspect is to quote from Jonah Goldberg, I think, who says the death of expertise. And so no one trusts the experts now. And so if you say to somebody, well, I'm an expert in whatever it is, you immediately go, well, then you really don't know what you're talking about. Because that I've read 3 articles on the internet, and that makes me the expert, not you.
I don't think, Laura, we'll see schools shut down unless it's really, really badly contagious again.
Or the cancellation of a primary.
Yeah.
I mean, you just think about some of the stuff that happened. It was really extraordinary.
Right. But we're having a problem now in people not believing in vaccination of kids in Florida. And those things tend to sweep through the country with mumps because they're not vaccinated.
All right. Let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. And Gene Krebs, you're up first.
So about 8 years ago, I said a party can't be both the populist party and the party of business. And as I talk to business leaders right now across Ohio, they say their biggest issue is attraction and retention of the creative class. And they say that they can't get those young, educated folks to come here because they do not want to come to a cold version of Alabama. And so what we're going to have to do is the business community is very concerned about this.
Okay, Sam.
Thank you to the public. We've found a way to get the legislation we need to solve our problems in the state of Ohio. We have more initiatives coming. Not only do we have the commission on redistricting, we have a whole voters' right package coming soon. So it's not over yet. We're going to get what we want, not from the state legislature, but through citizen initiatives.
And Laura.
I'd like to welcome Erin Glenn to our team at the USA Today Network Ohio Bureau. She comes to us from the Cincinnati Enquirer, where she was a Report for America fellow. And Erin is filling a slot that was left open when Mike swiped Anna Staver from us.
Yes, we're very glad to have.
You're never going to forgive him for that.
I'm not.
No, we're glad to have Anna, but point taken. She has a great podcast now called Untangled, where she's really digging into the housing crisis, which is really interesting. It is St. Patrick's weekend here in Columbus. It reminds me 4 years ago how basically St. Patrick's Day got canceled here in the state of Ohio. So I hope you celebrate, but of course, celebrate responsibly. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation on Facebook. And don't forget, you can watch us anytime on your time at our website, wosu.org/COTR. You can also watch us on YouTube and the PBS video app. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.